Hello there, so a new combo is where objects start counting up and get a different color. For 99% of maps, handling new combos is the easiest thing ever. And since that's what most of you are going to deal with, let's start out easy. The ranking criteria says combos should reflect patterns expressed in the song, such as bars of music or vocal/instrumental phrases. Most mappers separate new combos through bars of music, which essentially means using a new combo on each big white tick. Some mappers cut that new combo usage in half when rhythms are less dense, or double new combo usage when rhythms are much more dense. All of these ways ultimately reflect patterns in songs, as is suggested by the ranking criteria. These ways of separating combos according to bars of music also fall under the vocal/instrumental phrases thing too, since a lot of songs are structured in the same way. Like, pretty much every new measure could be interpreted as the start of a new vocal or instrumental phrase. There's a lot of other situations that fall under a similar concept, like these groupings. The same type of emphasis is repeated on every third object, so combos are arranged in groups of 3 to indicate that. Same with these 2-object combos, and I could go on. So placing new combos on important sounds consistently according to a song is what mappers do 99% of the time. That 1% of times though, that's where things get more interesting. New combo usage in certain situations can actually make parts of a map more intuitive through repeating or breaking patterns. Bad new combo usage isn't exactly game breaking since there's tons of players who use skins without new combos, but knowing how they can affect players and how to manipulate a response is a pretty good skill to have as a mapper. So, you already know that new combos are used on strong sounds, or points of emphasis. Most songs have points of emphasis on white ticks, sometimes on red ticks, and rarely any other ticks. Even if it's not conscious, players associate new combos with these strong sounds on specific metronome ticks, and therefore assume all new combos will be used on the same ticks within a map. Here's a map that uses this concept and a bit more. It starts out with spacing that's hugely abusing slider leniency, but the new combo here indicates that this is a white tick. After introducing that, it goes into even more variable spacing. Usually, you wouldn't expect 1/4 jumps after circles, especially at this BPM, but because it's using the same comboing and rhythm as before, players understand that new combos are never used on blue ticks. That means they'd never assume that this rhythm is something like this. A few seconds later, a similar sort of placement is used that could be confusing. You'd think this could actually be the same as those last 1/4 jumps, but the circle labeled 2 here is actually on a white tick, and players with their internal metronome as they're playing are able to interpret that. Because the map taught players that new combos just aren't ever going to be on blue ticks, they can assume the gap to the next object isn't going to be 1/4 of a beat, but rather 1/2 of a beat. It's a lot more expected for the new combo to be on the red tick than the blue tick since the map has red tick new combos earlier on, so it's just more predictable. If it weren't new comboed, it could be readable, but it would be a little more ambiguous since it could be read as a 1/4 jump. With the new combo though, it just won't. This concept also allows players to interpret stuff like this as streams rather than 4 notes in a row followed by a 1/2 beat jump. The map teaches players that new combos are landing on every white tick during the stream and never on any blue ticks. So when spacing starts to get a little weird, players can still recognize the rhythm. This same idea could even apply to smaller 1/4 jumps too, like these with new combos on every 1/2 beat. It's a lot more likely that a new combo is going to be on a red tick than a blue tick. You could even apply this concept to sliders with ambiguous end positions. Like, these repeating sliders don't really tell you when to click next, but you can be pretty certain they're going to be on white ticks if they have new combos. Longer sliders are the same sort of thing. You kinda just don't need to pay attention to the exact point the slider ends if the white tick is assumed to be a new combo. As a counter example, this map does the same thing with a blue tick new combo, meaning if players assumed comboing patterns repeated themselves, which they're gonna do even if they're not thinking about it, they might not read this as it was intended. Conceptually, everything I just explained is really simple. If you're putting new combos on strong sounds, you're probably going to do this anyway. But even so, knowing what new combos can influence is important in itself and can help in any exceptional situations. So aside from indicating something different in a song, new combos are also used to indicate something noticeably different in the way something is mapped. In most cases, these ideas overlap, since if the map is changing, the song probably is too, but I'll go over it anyway just to be sure. The most common thing like this is a new combo to show a slider velocity change. In most cases, mappers decide to use new combos on every slider velocity change, but that isn't like a rule or anything. It only really is important when the change isn't predictable. If you're alternating between 2 slider velocities with every object, you probably don't need a new combo on every object since people can recognize the pattern. Comboing to indicate massive changes in rhythm and spacing is also pretty important. For example, this map uses what you'd think to be unintuitive spacing. 1/4 jumps and 1/2 jumps are spaced visually the exact same, but by using new combos for each change, players can understand the pattern and associate it with the rhythm and spacing changes. If you really wanted to, the lack of a new combo could also get the same effect. This repeats the same 2-object comboing pattern for the same rhythm over and over again, but when that rhythm changes, the pattern changes too. Now let's move on to a few ways of using new combos that people often don't agree with. Ways that don't really indicate a strong sound with each new combo, but have more visual impact. For example, sometimes irregular rhythms, like 1/3 snappings, are represented with new combo spam. That's just like using a bunch of new combos in a row, spamming new combos. Because the way of comboing is different, players can interpret that something in the song is probably different too, like its rhythm. The pattern people recognize isn't where new combos are placed, but how many there are at a time, making each individual new combo not very important. That's why a lot of people don't really agree with this technique. Getting even more controversial, some people use new combos for entirely aesthetic reasons. Stuff like a stream of entirely new combos because rainbow combo colors look cool. I think it's kind of silly to use combos like this for similar reasons to the last thing, but it can express something along the lines of, this part of the song is different, so my map is different too. Which, yeah, I do appreciate. Speaking of a bunch of combo colors, I should also mention colorhaxing is an aspect of comboing. Colorhax is a word for changing combo color manually, usually to complement the music. For sure you've seen this before, like black and white colors for a calm section, then bright colors for an intense section. This colorhaxing thing can be taken to the next level though, by associating certain colors with specific sounds, and using new combos to indicate that. It's really, really rare, but take this map again. These sliders here are both the same sound, so they're part of the same combo and they're copy pasted to truly show that they are the same. The next 2 circles are different sounds, so the first one has a new combo and they're a different color. But the sound on this slider is the same as that first one. To show that, it uses not only the same copy-paste placement concepts, but also the same combo color. It makes it look like all 3 of these sliders are in the same combo since they're the same color and they're arranged the same way. There are, of course, other ways to use new combos to represent stuff, but I can't really list everything. So that's kinda it. On the surface, comboing is designed to correlate to the music, but because of how music forms patterns, comboing can influence how players interpret parts of a map.